Good evening and welcome to 365 Days of Stories with Theo Mayer. Here we are today, 55, and I'm continuing with the legend of the three beautiful princesses, the daughters of Muhammad, the left-handed. Now remember that he had put them in a tower near the coast, the Tower of Salobreña. And there, Caliga, who was Muhammad's wife's duenna, was there to take care of these three beautiful, growing young women. And there, remember, they had seen the three Spanish cavaliers who had been taken prisoner when they arrived on the beach and were taken away, and all three of them, Zeta, Zoraida, and Zoraheda, all three of the daughters were taken by the three cavaliers. Also remember that Caliga had begun to share stories with them of her youth and of her growing up in Spain and dancing with young men and all kinds of stories that began to perk the interest of these young women as to what it would be like to be in the company of men. And not only perked their interest, but it perked their desire to do so, especially after having seen those Spanish cavaliers. At a certain point, Caliga realized what effect she was having on these princesses and realized that these, women who had started off as girls that she had been watching over for all these years had become young women. They had truly made that transition away from childhood, from that, very young, from being a young woman to being a mature woman. And on their birthday, their 18th birthday, Caliga had sent to Muhammad a basket. And the basket was beautifully decorated with flowers, and the inside of the basket was covered with fig leaves and some vines. And laying within the basket were three beautifully ripened fruits, a peach, an apricot, and a nectarine. And these had been presented to Muhammad one early morning as he was having his breakfast. Messenger had brought it from Salobreña, from Caliga, and had presented it to the king. And it was in celebration of his daughter's birthday. Now Muhammad got the message, and he saw that Caliga was letting him know, without a doubt, that his daughters had become of age, of marriageable age. And remember what the astrologers had told him, that when they became of marriageable age, it would be very, very important that they were under his wing, under his watchful eye. And so he thought, it's time. I need to bring them here with me. And he was there in Granada. And so he began to have a place prepared for them to come and stay. And it was a tower that was basically, it separated the Alhambra from the Generalife. And There was a wall along it that the wall basically joined the Alhambra to this new tower that they would be staying in. And it looked over a ravine, and it looked across the ravine to this rocky area where there was another tower known as the Vermilion Tower. So he was going to have them brought there. And he had it all taken care of before he went from Granada down to the coast to the Tower of Salobreña to bring his daughters back. And he went accompanied, of course, by a retinue of, well, darkly clad men, warriors, on jet black Arabian horses. And it was quite a sight. They traveled along the roads, eventually got to the Tower of Salobreña. And there he gathered his daughters together, and he had brought for them 3 white Arabian horses with these, wonderful robes that were over the horses. Caparisons, I think they're called. That, almost struck the ground and were richly embroidered. And the bridles of the horses that his daughters rode on, they were silken bridles that had pearls and gems laced into them. And so here they all get started along the road. And Muhammad, the left-handed, had sent heralds out in front of the retinue that was going from the Tower of Salobreña back to the Alhambra and to Granada. And he'd sent heralds out ahead, letting everyone know that they should be off the roads completely. Any villages that they were passing through, everyone had been told they must close the windows and close their doors and stay off the streets completely, because he did not want anyone catching sight of his 3 beautiful daughters. Now, I should tell you a little bit about the 3 daughters, because each one was different, even though they were triplets. Zayda, the oldest, was the most precocious. She was the most, inquisitive in a certain way, openly inquisitive. Was forceful is not the right word, but she was a commander, we could say. If she wanted something, she would set out after it and would not hold back. She was very, in our day and age, we would call it very much, she'd be very much in your face if she needed to be. Zoraida, she was the second daughter, the second one that had been born. I guess it was very short, just a few minutes between each birth. And Zoraida was the most beautiful of 3. Zayda was tall, slender. Zoraida was not as tall, but beautifully configured. She had a beautiful physique and liked to look at herself in the mirror and make herself look beautiful. She spent time doing that. And as Caliga had told stories about the Spanish ladies and, all the things that she had grown up with, because remember, she was the dueña of a Christian princess originally. So she had come from a Christian land, and So she had revealed to the girls all the stories from that upbringing, that life that she had had. And as she would tell those stories, Zoraida would look in the mirror at herself and try to make herself look all the more beautiful. Now, Zoraida, the youngest, she was shy and rather timid. She loved animals. She had many pets. Her heart was very, very tender and sweet. And she would not be in your face. She would be kind of just the opposite, keeping things to herself and always wanting things to be safe and peaceful. If I go back to when Muhammad set eyes on his daughters when he got to the Tower of Celebrina, it's very important to note that he was really struck by what his daughters had become. He had not seen them, so it's told, for 3 years. And in that time, they had truly blossomed into being young women. Now, one could make the analogy that what they were before and what they were after when he came and met with them was like driving through or riding through the plains of La Mancha, which is very flat and there's really just nothing there to really see. And once you ride through those flatlands, you get to the Andalusia, where there are rolling hills and beautiful valleys. And this is much the way it was with his daughters. They had gone from being mere girls to being mysterious and deep, thoughtful, meditative young women. Now, it just so happens as they were traveling along the roads, the heralds going before them, clearing the roads, it just so happened that there was a group of soldiers within the monarch's kingdom that were leading some captives from the coast to Granada. And who should be within that group of captives but the 3 Spanish cavaliers? Now, the retinue had come upon this group of soldiers and prisoners so quickly that they did not have time, nor did they have a place to get off the road. And so, as the retinue approached, retinue of Muhammad and his daughters, the captain of the soldiers commanded everyone to lay down face down upon the ground, which everyone did, except the 3 Spanish cavaliers. And as the retinue approached, they stood watching. Now, this really got Muhammad upset. And he had instructed his soldiers that if anyone stayed out in the road or watched, they were to be cut down. This was not happening. So he himself dismounted from his horse and drew his scimitar out to wield a blow at these Spanish cavaliers. And what happened next was that his daughters surrounded him. They had leapt off their horses and had come in front of Muhammad and begged him to show mercy on the Spanish cavaliers. All of them, including Zoraida, who, was the most timid of them all. I'll leave the story there, and we'll find out what happens in this unusual turn of events. Okay, have a good rest of your day. Thanks for joining, and more tomorrow.